I'm glad you reminded me, actually. So is that it? Is that the long and short of it?
That's the short and long of it. Yeah. Okay.
So tell me, what have you noticed about the COVID stuff? What have you noticed?
I've noticed that the Dawn News doesn't have anything else for half an hour except COVID stuff. Okay.
What's that? The news? Oh yeah, well it's not news.
Yeah, it's
Propaganda.
and it is propaganda. It's so frustrating. Sorry, what was your question?
What have you noticed?
About COVID-D or COVID, whatever, Delta or whatever.
Oh, whatever.
Whatever, I don't know. Everybody blaming everybody else, and it started there, and then it's gone here, and now we've got to be careful here, and people are dying here that have had vaccinations, and these people are refusing vaccinations. No.
Part of the shift I've noticed is they seem to be now moving, or there seems to be a dialogue which is now emerging, which is saying, oh, let's just treat it the same as influenza and any other virus. Basically meaning is let's stop reporting on it.
Yeah, but also
stop reporting the statistics, not anything else, So if we don't talk about the number of people dying or the number of people hospitalized, then it's not an issue.
Then and I think Britain has led that that sort of charge now. We'll see how it turns out. But Australia is talking more about it now than they ever have, and don't understand. Really don't understand.
Well, I think it's got a lot to do with the fact that it's been politicised in one sense, and the other issue is that I think the media has got a huge area of responsibility for misinformation and
yeah, but what's driving the media, Don? It's two guys, okay, in the entire world, okay.
But who wants to read a newspaper these days? No one.
Yeah.
Who wants to watch? I mean, when they watch TV, what do they watch? They just watch fantasy and stuff like that. So
yeah.
So their only way of surviving from a business context is to create theatre. That's all they want to do.
Yeah, I think there's we know there's a much deeper program at play here. But yeah, I just wish that at least the news would get back to normality. But
well, I think one possible scenario that might play out though is that if they decide to stop, reporting on the infections and the deaths and all that sort of stuff, then it may and lockdowns and those sorts of things, it may well be that they might back off the vaccine part of it as well. They'll obviously continue to encourage people to go and get vaccinated and keep washing your hands and social distance and wear masks and da. But in terms of the enforcement of it, maybe they're going to step back from it.
But why would they? I mean, they've got a motive. They've got a reason. They've got an outcome that they want. So why step back from it? Okay, because it's going so well. Okay.
But in Australia, though, unless you want to travel overseas, then what are they going to control?
Yeah. Well, they're forcing. I mean, when I was waiting for the weather today, no matter what you want to do, you're going to have to be vaccinated to do it. Okay, you want to go from here to there, or you want to fly in an aeroplane.
Yeah, they're going to use it to try and leverage people into it, and that's like already in aged care workers have to have it. If you want to work in aged care, then you need the vaccination. That's not the only vaccination. It's for me to go and visit my mother in a aged care facility, I have to go and have the flu vaccination, otherwise they won't let me in.
Yeah, yeah. So you're going to have it?
Well, I have had it.
Oh,
Yeah.
you had it. Okay.
Well, I had no choice. I mean, it was, what do you want to do? Get the vaccination or see your mother?
I don't know.
Mm.
Don't know. Mm.
So anyway, bit over it all, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Bit over it all. It's been an appalling mess.
Yeah. If they would just be, report all the other things as well, the normal flu deaths, okay, a seasonal deaths. Let's have something to compare it with, because those seasonal deaths of flu are far in excess of the deaths of COVID.
That's right.
So uh, anyway. Anyway, let's. I mean, you've had the injection. I don't think we should actually discuss it anymore. Quite honestly,
I haven't had the COVID injection. I've had the flu injection, but not the COVID one.
Oh, I thought you said you have to have the COVID to go.
No, the flu, influenza.
Oh, yeah, that's neither here nor there. Okay, and that's last year's strain anyway, but that's fine. That's not dealing with your DNA. It's the COVID that deals with your DNA.
Mm-hmm.
Flu injection is a proper, yeah, it's genuine. It's in they're trying to do what they're trying to do. There's no motive behind an influenza injection.
Mm.
A vaccine for influenza is a genuine vaccine.
Mm.
COVID isn't a genuine vaccine.
No.
Yeah, okay, sorry, I misunderstood you. I really thought you'd had the COVID injection.
No.
Yeah, the flu, yes, I would do the same if it was my mother as well. Definitely, because it's neither here nor there. It's not, it's not going to make you sick.
No, it didn't. It didn't. No.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, but it's just as we talked about, it's just part of the world that we're living in at the moment, isn't it? It's just
Yeah.
big things at play.
Yeah.
So how are your courses going?
I've just finished my second spirituality and aging.
Okay, how did that go?
It went as well as the first one. Okay.
Oh, good.
Which is so interesting. I was a little nervous, but from the first one, I sort of gathered, a little bit more practicality, a little bit more down to earth type stuff. So I knew where I was going to stop and what sort of questions I was going to ask, which I didn't the first time, really. And it really came out well. And there were a couple of people in the class that said at the beginning, I'm hesitant of being here. I'm not sure, but I'm going to see what it is. Okay, and by the end of the class, they were very pleased that they had joined the class. Okay, and one of the things were that they were very pleased how all the learners, and myself, listened to everybody. Okay, there were diverse opinions. Okay, there were a lot of diverse opinions, and this one woman who was really unsure was like amazed, that everybody listened to each other, and that she was complimentary in saying that, I led the class along certain path, and that was fine. It was, sort of looking at broad concepts, and then the learners brought in the detail. Okay. And so she was eventually very happy that she came in. But we're still not getting any Australian people. So, when like this one, Spirit Chat, it was 12 o'clock. I mean, it's midnight in many places in America.
And did they have the video cameras on?
Yeah, they did. And except for the one every now and again turned it on. But So yeah, but most of them had that on, and but you could see they were tired. I mean, the one was yawning, like you could see her tonsils. She was yawning straight into the camera, you know.
Mm.
But she was participating, you know.
Mm. Mm.
And so I'm very pleased. I'm very pleased about how that moved, because I I want to streamline it more and more. And if I can just make people think, okay. There was one person there in the class that wasn't interested in thinking. They were a Christian. They believed in God. They believed in the Bible, and they believed in everything that was,
Mm.
and that was fine. Um, and
Lots of beliefs, eh?
yeah, it was only the one that had that strong religious belief. The others were all perhaps more spiritual. Okay, there was a knowing, and there was a superior power somewhere, and so yeah. So I'm going to streamline it even more for the next one, but I'm happy with it. The other classes. Yeah, I'm getting reasonable numbers, but they're either coming from India, um, or they're coming, the earlier ones in the day are coming from America. So yeah, yeah. Otherwise, well, Ilana from Alatra, that group, the chat group that I used to run, she I suggested she look into and becoming a Get Set Up guide, and she did, and she has, and but I sent her straight to the head office to just go and register, which she did, but she's having a lot of problems with I don't know, technical problems, and she's feeling so down in the dumps, but there's nothing I can do about it. It's unfortunate, but because I think she's talking about Russia and so on, but when she tries to get into meetings, she can't get in, and when she gets in, her slides won't show, and so those sort of technical issues. I'm not sure how to assist her other than just to give her moral support.
Does she not have a support person like you have?
No, she only had one person contact her, this person, Norman. Now, I've researched him. He does a couple of classes, but he's got no information next to his name. And I don't know who that is. He doesn't. It doesn't appear to be a guide. He appears to be like a full-time employee or something, but I'm not sure. And I've asked my support person here, Mark, about him, and he says he doesn't really know. He's heard of him, doesn't know who he is or what he is. So anyway, I'm sort of watching and giving some hints of what I do on my side to avoid the type of problems that she's had. So maybe it will help.
Well, it's a shame.
Yeah, it is.
I hope it doesn't scare her away.
I got the feeling when I read it today that it might. Let's see. Because the type of problems she's had, I've had historically many months ago. So, yeah.
So how did you resolve them for yourself?
How did what?
How did you resolve those issues for yourself?
I am the sort of guy, and I still to this day, I mean, we're not free of issues. I report them, and 9 times out of 10, I don't get a solution. And then I start searching for myself and start finding a way to resolve them myself. And then a lot of the times I do. Okay. So yeah, then once you've solved them, you can then share some of that information. But anyway. Yeah.
Oh, well, I hope she works her way through it. Be a shame to lose someone of that caliber, I would have thought.
Yeah, I hope so too. I hope so too, because one of the hints I said to her, I said, still to this day, because of the type of incidents that I had historically, like she had this weekend, is I log in my classes half an hour early. Okay, because often it's the logging in process that causes panic.
The problem, yeah.
Yeah, and and so by doing it half an hour earlier, you've got plenty of time before the class starts. And if it crops up, which it does sometimes, then it's because for some reason either Zoom or Get Set Up have decided that I'm not correctly logged in, or something happened, been logged out of everything. So now I go to Zoom and I log in, I go to Get Set Up, I log in, and that takes like 10 minutes in all. And then I try again, and then it works.
Yeah.
But the first time you panic, you're asking for help. What's happened? I can't get in. I can't get in my class. And so I still have issues like, when you do polling, my Get Set Up polls won't be saved. So now I just go into the class early, I create a poll. Okay. And there it is. I just minimize it. Okay. One day the system will work correctly. But there's those sort of things. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Just an hour ago, 3:30, in fact, or 3 o'clock. They brought on, our support team here in Australia brought on an Indian lady called Nita, and just to, for her to share what she's doing in it. She's just a guide in India. She's not a management or anything. She's just a guide, and talking about what she does. So she had a little slide presentation, and it was really so interesting. Okay. And she does so many classes, and it made me realize, because she does new content every time she does the class. Okay.
Really?
Yes. And some of them are daily. I can't get over what she's doing. So it's quite an inspiration. But it's made me sit back and just think a little bit. Okay. And I want to go in and perhaps watch one or two of her, if I can. They actually work off a different website, because they don't use English. Okay. And so I'm not sure if I can get there, but I'll find a way in, one way or another, and listen to one of her classes, because she was saying she does use video. Now I'm not allowed to use video. Okay.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Mark is an attorney background. Okay, so he thinks there's IP legal issues if you use somebody else's video. I don't go along with that, quite honestly. Not within a class where you've got to book in and go in. It's not like, but that's not, because they do stream some of them live. So I suppose then they are free for all, and they could be picked up.
But they're not selling it though. Like, you don't have to pay to be in the class, do you?
No, you don't. But you're not allowed to use it. I got wrapped over the knuckles. I would have mentioned it probably some months ago to you, by YouTube, because I used some background music, on one of my videos. Okay, and they picked up the background music immediately the next day. Okay, they've obviously got things crawling, listening to every single thing. Okay, said, you've breached, you've gone too far. Okay, and please remove it. And I removed it, this day, and that's the last I heard of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, they do have. You've got to be careful, I guess, when you're streaming live, which gets set up.
Yeah. And so, what did they say, that you'd breached copyright or something? Did they?
Yeah, exactly what it was, and it was a song that went back to the 1960s, and they'd obviously keep renewing, or somebody had, when the copyright ran out, somebody redid it. I guess I'm not quite sure. I wasn't particularly interested in finding out. I thought I was quite safe, taking something from the early '60s and using it, but wasn't. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, well, it's the minefield we walk these days, isn't it? So.
Yeah. I've got quite fine in my new book. Now, have you finished your book, your audio book that you were listening to?
I finished one again today. Yeah.
Okay. Tell us about it.
That was the book about karma. So one of Sadhguru's books. It was, I think it might have been the last book he released just not long ago. So it was on the topic of karma. I found it absolutely fascinating. Absolutely fascinating.
Tell me what.
Well, I mean, like for the spiritually advanced, like to use their language, because that's the language that they use.
Yeah.
Is they were sort of saying like, how gurus and the spiritual masters, like the Buddha and Christ and those sorts of people, took karma on. So because one of the key tenets is that the body can't exist in the absence of karma.
Okay.
So when you look at the work of the spiritual masters, if you want to use that term, irrespective of whether a guru or like I term like Moya as a spiritual master. So the way that they take on karma to not only exist in this physical world, but the what's the way to describe it? The way they simultaneously have all of this karma, quite often huge amounts of karma associated with them, but they're not. But they're separate from it.
Yeah.
So, and the reason that they do it that way apparently is not only to maintain the physical body, while they're doing the things that they want to do, but it also, in terms of how they dissolve that karma when they do leave the body. So, and apparently, if you're at a certain level of awareness and so on, in the last 40 seconds of your life, you can not only dissolve the residual karma that you have out of this lifetime, but also out of previous lifetimes, if you're sufficiently awake, or aware, which is fascinating because karma is such a slippery topic. It really is. And they talk about good karma and bad karma, and they talk about, the reason karma exists and the way that you can dissolve it, but also the way that it's often created. And he said, and quite often you'll find within the spiritual ranks that some of the people who are very spiritual, if you want to use that terminology, are creating mountains of karma for themselves because of the way they approach their spirituality. Is they approach it with such a degree of compulsiveness, if you like, that the very act of doing it that way creates all of this karma.
Yeah.
But if you look at the spiritual masters, they are so laser-like precise about their spiritual practice and the way they conduct themselves, is they're actually not creating more karma for themselves because of the way that they create this separateness from the karma itself, So I just found it absolutely fascinating. And one of the things he was talking about there right at the end, or just near the end of the book, he was talking about that in his own lifetimes, because he's had several lifetimes, but the last number of lifetimes, it's all been around doing the work that he's currently doing. So it's taken him lifetimes to, develop consecrated spaces and the energy fields associated with it, and he's failed in a number of lifetimes to achieve what he wanted to achieve, so he's come back. And he was talking about when he was in the consecration process of this thing called a linga, which is a big sort of phallic sort of piece of stone, actually.
Yeah.
But the amount of energy and that he put into that, which is sort of has rarely been done over thousands of years to the extent that he's managed to do it. But the cost of it while he was doing it is that it sort of, virtually killed him in a physical sense because of the way that he had to manage his energies around it. And he was saying that not in this lifetime, but in the previous lifetime, he actually took on another body. So his presence was across two physical beings.
Okay.
To try and achieve, some of the work that he was doing. And apparently that's not uncommon. So, and he was sort of saying, and he doesn't do it in the sense of justifying himself, because he's one of those. His spiritual path is one that, to me anyway, is obvious that he removes himself from pretty much everything. So yes, I'm doing this work, but I'm not. It's nothing to do with me. It's about the greater good, in that sort of context. So, but he was just talking about how even animals can have a limited form of karma as well. But the reason that they don't have the karma like that we have, and his example was, if you take a tiger, a tiger will always be a tiger. That's its fulfillment. He said, yes, you will have aggressive tigers and passive tigers and energetic tigers and lazy tigers, but they are a tiger. That's essentially what they are, and that's what their being is. He says, but the difference with people is that people can transform themselves. They can transform themselves into spiritual beings. They can transform themselves into all sorts of things. So, and that's the difference. And he said, and that's why, the whole issue of karma is such an important issue for people, because it's something, his it's not a teaching, it's not a philosophy. His observation, perhaps, is probably an accurate way to describe it, is that if we're striving to be to transcend the limitations of this physicality, then, one of the things that we need to do along the pathway of that is dissolve our karma.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a whole range of practices around how you do dissolve that karma and ways that you conduct yourself to make sure that you're not creating more karma for yourself in a negative sense, but also the need for precision. So he says there are things that each of us can do as an individual in terms of our spiritual practices to help us dissolve that karma, or dissolve a significant part of it. But you also need to be aware that if you dissolve it to the extent that the physicality can no longer survive, that you're going to exit the body. So
Okay.
So, and for some, that might be their goal, to transcend this and go on to the next, the next dimensions. But for others, well, for the majority, I guess he's saying, or for the bulk of the people, because of the way that karma operates and how reincarnation comes about and all of those aspects, the number of people who do that transcendence is relatively small. But he was also talking about it even almost in the quantum physics sense, because people would say, well, because the population of the the planet is growing and has been growing for a long time, like, where does all this extra karma come from? And he said, well, that's one of the quantum paradoxes, is that you can't talk about, the reality is you can't talk about numbers because numbers don't exist. He said, so if I tell you that, 10 people have so much certain amount of karma, and then I tell you or demonstrate to you, or I can, your experience is that in fact 10 people don't have that amount of karma, then nor can one. But there is karma, but there's there's not the sort of numbers game that people want to sort of go and attach to it. So it's a slippery topic in the sense that just trying to get the nuances and the precision necessary to not only think about it, but then also the sorts of spiritual practices, that if it's important to you, that you need to undertake, and things that you can do yourself, and then at certain points when you need the intervention of, someone outside, like a guru or a teacher or a master or whatever, depending on your ambition about, transcendence, so.
Right.
Which brings back that incredible thing about volition and, the ability to make decisions as well. Karma obviously steers us all in terms of, learning lessons and things like that. But, I think that we still seem to be left with this volitional, the ability to make decisions about our, how we conduct ourselves and what we do and how we do it.
So does that also affect the karma? I mean, if you stand on an ant unconsciously and kill the ant, okay, there must be karma.
Well, I think there is, because I mean, it's almost like, even the process of eating, that taking on board food, ceases the life of something else, whether it's a plant or whether it's an animal, or, unless we get our energy from the sun.
Okay, so I go along with that, but now just trying to come back to the point that you made a moment ago, and that was, you can then, if you make an effort to try and liquidate your karma or some of it, surely that's in itself creating karma?
Not necessarily, I don't think. No.
Okay. Can you?
I mean, there will be some means, if that your intention is to dissolve the karma, but the way that you're doing about it, in fact, is creating karma. That's one scenario. The other scenario is that even if you are following the practices that dissolve karma and you don't want to exit this body right now, the rate of dissolution will be different than for someone who says, no, it's time for me to go. I want to shed this and I want to dissolve this karma because I want to transcend to other dimensions.
Okay, so you have an intention, and that intention itself is not karma creating?
Don't think so, in the sense that, as you and I know, that as you seek to go to these other levels, to, your stairway to the divine, the stairway to God, it can only happen on the basis of truth. And as long as you do it consistent with the truth of what it is, then it won't create additional obstacles for you. But the truth is the part that's that we need to be aware of, and we just need that absolute precision around it. There's no close enough is good enough, or my intention is enough. It's not about your intention. It's about what you actually do. It's experiential. It's how we exist and how we operate. That's the parts that makes all of the difference. And even when you think about it in the context of time, and this is where karma can flow or dissolve. That if I choose to think about the past, which is memory, then those memories can be a source of karma for me.
Yeah.
If I, ponder the future, which is imagination, then they too can be a source of karma, depending on what I'm thinking about. But if I exist in this present moment and the inevitability of this present moment, then that is going to really be a key determinant on whether I exist without a karmic debt accruing or not.
Okay. Yeah. I had a thought just come to my mind. It's just got now. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The thought was, so in this moment, you want to help somebody. Okay. However way it is, and you go and you help them. Okay. Now that's accruing good karma, but it's accruing karma. So good and bad karma don't actually wipe each other out. It's not like a balance sheet.
No. Karma's karma.
Karma's karma, whether it's good or bad.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I go along with that. Yeah.
And I think the thing about it too is that people over the eons have made a lot about karma, and that it can be a punishment or it can be a something that's meted out or whatever, and it's not about that. I think in the broader sense there are always consequences to what we do. Good consequences, bad consequences, or seemingly bad consequences, but even if you take the labels away, the fact of the matter is there are consequences to what we do.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the condition of being human, is we always want to, this duality. We want to make things either good or bad, or right or wrong, or black or white, or whatever, vanilla or chocolate. It becomes a very discriminatory sort of mindset, where if you enter the realm of the present, then there's only one. And even that idea that there's only one is a falsehood.
Okay. Why do you say that?
Well, because the ultimate is nothing.
Okay.
The noise is deafening.
Sorry?
The noise is deafening.
Yeah. The ultimate is nothing. Okay. Where it talks about nothingness. Okay. I agree. But it's so interesting in my mind when you think about nothingness. Let's say it's like almost, let's say, steps, and I'm just using my own words, steps to nothingness. Okay. But before you get to nothingness, you've got to get to God. Okay. So you've got steps to God. Okay. Before you get to God, you've got to transform yourself into a karmaless entity, all right, or a karmaless soul, maybe. Okay. and so that is the enlightened people, enlightened spiritual people, then have a choice of whether they want to come back or not come back or reincarnate, because they don't have karma anymore.
Mm. Mm.
Okay? If you have karma, you have to come back, because this is where you can action your karma and evolve to heaven on earth. So.
And that's sort of, in one sense, the calling. The calling through a path of wisdom is one that seeks to dissolve as much karma as they can before they shed the body.
Yeah.
But one of the traps is that it's not unusual for some people, as the older they get, they start to fear death and they start to regret things that they have or haven't done. And, all of these other things start to emerge. They want to they have the mind of an 18-year-old in terms of what they think that they can go and do. But, they fall into a big karmic bucket in many respects because of all of these forces at play, so. And I think this is one of the things that comes back to, like words like acceptance and things like that, that as we age and age gracefully, presumably, and there's a sort of an acceptance and acknowledgement that we're all on the death row,
Yeah.
But one of the other things, though, is that, very few of us, and I mean very few of us, are in a position to determine, how and when we die.
Mm-hmm.
And that includes people who, like I could, walk out of my front yard and a tree could fall on me, so it could be an accidental death, or I could be struck down by illness or whatever. So, I exit the body prematurely, well, there's a lot of unresolved karma there that needs, further work, which, as you say, you come back.
So do what you're saying, and I question this in my own mind, historically, is there such a thing as an accidental death? Okay.
Well, whether it's accidental or not, I think it's a premature death, isn't it?
Well, is there such a thing as well, that's a better word. Is there such a thing as a premature death? Okay. If you're highly spiritually evolved, then possibly yes. Okay. There might be. But surely everything else is just part of karma today, and if you, die with a tree falling on you, surely that is, I hesitate to say preordained, okay, but is it not something that it's actually your time is up? So do you have a time? Maybe that's a better question. Do you have a time? Did Sadhguru say anything about people having a time, or is it just through neglect of the body or accidents do happen, and so you exit prematurely, as your word?
I think the challenge when you talk about time is it takes you into into that linear of, present, past, and future, which we know is all happening at the same time anyway.
Yeah.
When I say we all know, I mean you and I know.
Yeah.
And some others. But so in that context, it again takes you back into that paradoxical arena where, is it in fact premature? So if you are living in the present moment, and we know that simultaneously the past and the future is to the left and right of us,
Yeah.
then from a karma perspective, maybe it doesn't have a bearing. But if I'm living a life where I'm flipping between the past and the future and every now and again the present, well, then there's going to be a karmic accrual.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it's premature or not premature is probably beside the point. Because of how I choose to live my life at that time.
Mm, mm, mm. Yeah, I go along with that.
Mm. But the other thing he talked about was collective karma.
Oh yes, absolutely. Yeah, I'm aware of this too. What did he say?
Well, and he was sort of saying, that I suppose he gave a few examples of the sense when people say, oh, so how do we account for hunger or disease or misjustice and all of those sorts of things and wars and that. And that's when he was saying, well, there is, that collective karma. And there's also the karma that comes from the parents, through the child, So, so there's karma coming at you every which way. But I think the thing is, we shouldn't judge it. We should just accept it for what it is and how we respond to it. Really, isn't it?
Yeah. And it in itself wants to resolve itself. Okay.
Well, that's what he's saying is the process of life and living. It is about resolution of your karma,
Right. Because when one thinks of, you can probably have examples here in Australia, but if you think in South Africa, there all those decades of apartheid, the separation of black and white, there must have been a lot, collectively as a country, a lot of karma. Okay. And so, I was part of that period and that time, and you couldn't avoid it. You just were, and you might have done something to try and help a black person or whatever, but you were part of that karma. So now, collectively, that's just part of your karma, is it not? Yeah.
And it's exactly the same issue here in Australia. I mean, we had a white Australia policy up until the early 1970s.
Right.
Never got the publicity that South Africa did, probably because of the proportions of, black and white,
Yeah.
But hey, it was alive and well, and discrimination was, rife. And hence things like stolen generations and some of those things, which are things that we're still trying to deal with today.
Yeah. So the collective consciousness, so the country as a whole will suffer the pain of the negative karma. And so will the people, regardless where they are living or where they've reincarnated anywhere in the world, they're taking on some of that karma.
And it also, I guess, in one sense, got me thinking even about, the karma of the planet,
Yeah.
Some of the things that, we're going through and they're about to go through in terms of, climate events and other sort of geographical and, events driven by, outside of the planet and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's another form of karma. Has to be, doesn't it?
It has to be. I agree. Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
And if you think about some of those conversations that Alatra has, in terms of, it's not too late, we can do something about that, then that seems to indicate to me it's about, okay, well, how do we dissolve some of that karmic, debt along the way?
But doing good is not going to dissolve it.
No, it's not, and that's part of the folly and part of the falsehood.
Yeah.
It's about dissolving what's there, which is different from trying to have this mathematical equation as, if this is negative and this is positive, then one cancels out the other. It's not that at all.
No. Yeah. And so it's totally going back to a very, very important point, that it's only got to do with the individual. It's only got to do with us. We have got no responsibility, and we cannot influence somebody else's karma. Okay, and we cannot make it worse, and we cannot dissolve it. We can only do that for ourselves, and we can only do that in the moment, becoming spiritual.
Okay? And when you say to people, well, what does actually being spiritual look like? A dramatic oversimplification of it is probably putting self aside. So.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I understand what you mean by that, but it's really a difficult concept. Because I think you could think, well, it's selflessness, okay, and that's fine, okay, but it's not the opposite of selfishness, okay.
No.
Yeah. So so being selfless is in the moment, okay, and living in a selfless is really living in the moment, I guess, or part of living in the moment.
Yeah, well, one way I guess I was thinking about it is that it's almost like, getting out of the way of God. It's like,
yeah, okay.
It's letting the divine shine, don't cast a shadow, so.
Which is perhaps Alatra would say, making that connection with the soul. The soul is the divine spark. It's God's representative. Okay?
Yeah.
And it has an identity, which is you. Until nothingness arrives. At the time, nothing.
So I started listening to the book a little bit, if I'm being honest, and I am being honest, that I started listening to the book thinking, oh yeah, what's all this going to be about?
Yeah.
And I have to say that as it finished today, it was like, wow.
Okay.
I had no idea, Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like I really got to read it or listen to it. So why don't you send me the details, because it's obviously had an effect on you, and I must gain that knowledge. It's from the sound of everything you've said has been very interesting.
So and it's quite a detailed dissertation, really. But as I said, one of the communication nuances, which communication and spirituality are always difficult bedfellows, but is that the language that he uses is from the East Indian tradition. So so but that and that's just a tradition that's developed its own language, I guess, to try and communicate these concepts. So.
Right. Okay. Maybe I should go back, because I've got, as you know, I've got all Moya's books stored away here. And there are a number of chapters in different books about karma. It's probably a good idea to go back and read them, because I'm just relying now on years and years of memory of different aspects. Yeah.
And I guess it's timely not only because of that, but it's probably timely also because of the nature of the conversations that you're doing through Gets It Up at the moment too. One of the things that I sort of have to be careful that I don't react to is when you get, as you had today, I believe in God, I believe in the Bible, I believe in this, and I believe in that. You say, well, that's good, but what's your actual experience?
Yeah.
So.
Interesting, because the one person, just to add to what you just said, is and I've got to bite my tongue here. Was saying, I go to church and I read the Bible, because I want something. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And
because as soon as that word "I" comes in,
yes, yeah.
we have a winner.
Yes, we do. We have an ego.
And that's the subtlety and the and not so subtle aspect of that whole conversation, isn't it? You know, so
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and this is one of the broader things, I guess, that I've sort of learned a lot over the last couple of years. You know, I keep on using that word precision, and you know, but it's so true. You know, like the truth requires absolute precision, because if you stray from the truth, then it's not the truth.
It's not precision.
Mm.
Precisely.
You know, so
Yeah, yeah.
and some of it can be pretty darn subtle.
Mm, mm, mm. But if you're in the moment, I guess, then subtlety means you use in your logic, you lose in your brain, and so on. Um, and that's where, you know, the subtlety of two options or something comes up.
Mm. I think it goes back a bit too for me to that just that word awareness as well. You know, that the more aware you are of some of these things, even if it is very subtle,
Mm,
but you're seeing it, you know,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
and you're alert enough to sort of say, ask yourself the question, you know, like, so what's going on here? You know, so,
yeah, yeah,
mm, yeah, why am I feeling this way? You know. Mm,
yeah, yeah.
mm.
That's a very good point. Why am I feeling this way? Yeah.
Actually, maybe that's not the right. It's, why is this feeling here rather than why am I feeling this way? So why is this feeling here? Mm,
Yeah, yeah. All right, fair enough.
mm,
Yeah.
mm. So I, you know, I yeah thoroughly enjoyed it. Thoroughly enjoyed it, and I need to find myself another book.
Yeah, I'm still going through Dr. Gundry's energy book at the moment.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, yeah. But
are you
when
enjoying it?
um, no, okay,
Mm,
okay. Um, but yeah, there were certain things that attracted me to it, and I. But he, as an author, he's changed.
oh
Okay.
right, yeah.
Yeah, he's very egotistical now, and
So
he's.
do you think he's still writing the books then?
I don't think so, quite honestly.
Mm, mm,
Don't think so, because the style has changed. He's selling all sorts of different products and supplements,
yeah,
uh, you know, and so yeah, I'm definitely going to. You know, well, I'm almost finished it now. Okay,
yeah.
I don't have much longer to go. So probably the next couple of days, if I can put in an hour or two, then I will have finished it.
Mm,
Um, but you've really got me going that I need to um, get something that's going to, you know, like stimulate. Like this conversation has been very stimulating, yours and mine now, and I think I need to sort of get back onto um, uh, sort of just something that is more Michael, I guess. Okay. Maybe.
best way to describe it, isn't it? You know, and that's I guess been part of my search. It's not something that you know, I'm not looking for a book that I'm going to enjoy necessarily. I'm not looking for a book that, you know, that I is going to, you know, stretch my imagination or even. I just want something which is going to, you know, enhance my perception of the truth.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
You
That's
know,
it. Yeah,
and
yes.
and then if that's going to make me outrageously uncomfortable, then bring it on. Because it's not about entertainment, it's not about pleasure, it's not about oh that's nice. It's about something that's, you know, it's got to
Yeah, yeah,
shine light on areas that I'm just not seeing at the moment, or remove the blinkers or the blindness or whatever it is. You know, I'm just
yeah. Yes, to take off the blinkers of
mm,
it.
mm,
because we definitely we put up our own blinkers, we put up our own blocks.
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course you don't know that you don't know.
No, that's right. No, it's not something you're doing consciously necessarily, you know. So
yeah.
Mm. Mm. So yeah, and I think the other thing too, just to sort of close it out a little bit, I guess in one sense for me, is that, you know, when I finish a book like I've, you know, today, like just the admiration for the spiritual masters, like it's just, you know, the work that they've done, you know, like the pathfinding and the incredible way that they operate in terms of operating in this, you know, physical environment when the pull must be just absolutely incredible to just step out of it, you know, just like.
Yeah. Do you think that Jesus Christ had the same issues?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
I do. Yeah. You know, yeah, you know, it just seems to me that it's, I don't know whether sacrifice is the right word, but, you know, just, you know, the work that they do is so much more than many would just perceive, you know.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and I'm sure that those that are walking the earth today, like Moya and others, like it's just, and you know it at a level beyond knowing, in the sense that, you know, as I'm sure you've experienced, like just when you're in their presence, it's just like, you know, the energy that just, you know, flows from them is just incredible, you know. So
yeah.
Mm.
Anyway, I think
that doesn't come about as a fluke or. Sorry, you just stopped there for a moment. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was going to say it's probably a good time to close it off, because it's really left me thinking about.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, it is. It's great. So yeah,
Let's do that.
let's close it out. And
Okay. And are you around on Sunday this week, or you're not sure yet, or?
yeah, I do want to. I definitely want to attend another meeting now of the collective consciousness. Okay, from what I've seen is coming through, seems very interesting stuff, particularly related to Australia.
Well, I'm absolutely flexible, as you know. So just let me know. Just let me know whether you're going to be around or not, and don't feel bad about it. Just do what you're called to do. Yeah.
Well, this Sunday I want to. I'd like to attend their conference, and you know, if you want to, you must just let me know if you want to listen. But otherwise, we can either connect on Sunday or Monday, or we just skip the Sunday this time and go to Wednesday again next week. Which do you tend to want to skip most times and just come the following time?
Oh, it's just I just use the time to go and do other stuff, you know. So yeah.
But would you prefer to have it like on a Saturday?
Yeah, can do if you like. Yeah.
Okay.
If that works for you. Yeah, I'm flexible.
You know, I no longer have the Alatra, which I used to have on a Saturday, you see. So this time, you know, on Saturday works for me.
Okay, well, just let me know and we'll do it.
Okay. Well, let's do it.
Okay.
Let's set a date for 4:30 on Saturday, or every Saturday, because then it leaves an option. I can decide to do the collective consciousness or not. Okay?
Yeah. Okay. That sounds good.
Is that all right?
Good. Yep. Sounds good. Perfect.
All right. We'll see you Saturday. And by the way, I am still uploading all the recordings to the Rising Phoenix. Okay. I don't send you the links anymore because I'm sure the YouTube.
Well, they come up. They come up in my feeds anyway.
Yeah, I'm not editing them. Okay. Yeah. I'm just putting them up with a date now. I'm using the date, so there's some sort of sequence. Before, I was trying to give some sort of name to it, and I think that becomes really very difficult. Actually,
yeah, it does. Yeah, we talk a lot of nonsense, don't we? Yeah.
Yes. So put a date up, and You know, so we've like got that library we can go back to at any
Yeah.
stage, you know, and see. And anybody else who wants to listen to it, they're welcome. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll make
Perfect.
it public. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. You take care.
You too.
Okay.
Cheers.
Then. See you now. Bye.